Alright guys, so by now we've started working on a lot of word problems. We've gone over looking for key words in the word problems to help us decide whether we're going to add or subtract. And now we're going to start talking about, in word problems, we're going to start asking ourselves, are my answers reasonable? And what I mean by that is, as I'm solving these problems and these different things, I want to know, does my answer make sense? When I put an answer on paper, does it match the question? Am I answering the right question? And does my addition or my subtraction, does my computation make sense? Does it work? Here's the example of what I mean by does it make sense. Look at this question here. Mr. G went to the store with $50. He bought some food for $37. How much did Mr. G have left when he left the store? So here's a word problem saying that Mr. G goes to the store with $50, spends some money, and then leaves. Okay? Here's an answer. And I've seen this before in the past with different classes and different students. And the answer might be Mr. G left with $87. And what happened here is that the students added the $50 to the $37 that Mr. G spent. However, if we look back and we ask ourselves, is my answer reasonable? You can see that this doesn't make sense. We don't go to the store with money and spend money and then leave the store with more money than we went in there with. So that's what I'm talking about when we're looking at these word problems. We want to know, does my answer, is it reasonable? Does it make sense? Okay? And so a couple of things that we look at and we ask ourselves after we answer a question is, one, did we answer the right question? We need to make sure that we are answering the right question, the question that the word problem is asking us to solve. And sometimes we read a problem and we think we have the right answer, but we're actually not answering the question that is being asked. Okay? And we want to make sure that we are answering the right question. And then number two, we want to make sure our computation, our addition or our subtraction makes sense. That the numbers we come up with, we don't want to just add or subtract, think we have the right answer, and move on because we could have made a mistake in our addition or in our subtraction. So we want to make sense, and there's a way we can check that. So let's first look at the question, am I answering right questions? Okay, let's take a look here at this first example. Carlos had a bag of marbles. In his bag he had 63 marbles. He gave 26 to his younger brother Edward. How many marbles does Carlos have left? So we have a problem here where Carlos has a bag of marbles with a certain amount in there, which is 63. He gives some away, so we're subtracting 63 minus 26, giving some away to his brother Edward. And here is an answer. Edward had 37 marbles. Now at first it might seem right, because 63 minus 26 does equal 37. However, if you read the answer, I'm not answering the right question, because it doesn't want to know how much Edward has, but it's asking how much does Carlos have. Remember, Carlos is the one who started off with the big bag of marbles, and he gave some to Edward, who is his brother. Then if I look back at my question is asking how many marbles does Carlos have left. I answered and said that it was Edward who had 37 marbles. So you see, I'm actually answering the wrong question, and I need to correct that. So the correct answer should be that Carlos has 37 marbles left, not Edward. Now let's take a look at what is more common, the more common mistake, and that's when your addition or your subtraction is not correct. And there is a good way to check and see if your answer is reasonable. Let's take a look at this example here. Ashley collected shells at the beach. She collected 78 shells one week and 54 shells the next week. How many shells did she collect in all? I see my keyword in all here. That's telling me I'm going to add. So I'm going to add what she collected in 1 week, which is 78, plus 54. Now I have two examples of answers that could possibly happen. One is Tom's answer. Tom's answer says that she collected 132 shells. Then we look over here and we have Rebecca's answer, saying that she has 115 shells. Now I'm not sure which one's correct. I haven't done my adding yet, but there is a way to check and see at least which answer is reasonable, and I can do that by estimation. I can estimate the two answers, get an answer that should be close to the right answer, and then I can look at Tom's answer and Rebecca's and see which one makes sense with my estimation. So if I took 78 and I rounded it to the nearest 10, it would be 80. Then if I took 54 and rounded it to the nearest 10, it would be 50. Okay, so 80 and 50 would be 130. So my estimation in this question would be about 130. So that means that when I actually come up with an actual answer, I should be pretty close to that. I shouldn't be too far away from that for my answer to be reasonable. So again, we look down here at Tom's answer. Tom's answer is 132, and Rebecca's answer is 115. Tom's answer is reasonable. His answer, 132, is pretty close to my estimation of 130, but Rebecca's is off. Hers is 15 shells away. That seems not too reasonable. That's not making too much sense when you're looking at these numbers and add them together. So her answer is probably wrong. Now Tom's, I'm not sure if it's 100% correct, but I at least know that it makes sense and that it is reasonable. Now if I take a step further, if I was Tom, I would double check my answer. I would go ahead and add 78 and 54, and I would find out that 8 and 4 is 12, and 8 and 5 is 13. So that would be 132. So Tom is actually correct. So as I'm working on word problems, if I want to check and see if my answer is reasonable, I can go back and then estimate my the numbers, whether I'm adding or subtracting, and my estimation should be pretty close to my actual answer. If it's not, then I might have done something wrong, and I should go back and check again. That's another way to check if it's reasonable. So again, let's review here. We want to ask ourselves, is my answer reasonable? Do my numbers make sense? To check that, you can estimate the answer, and hopefully your actual answer is close to what you got with your estimation. If it's way off, like Rebecca's, then I really need to go back and check again. And then again, remember, am I answering the right question? As I'm answering this question, I have to ask myself, did I answer the question that's being asked in my word problem? If I didn't answer that question, then I should go back and figure out, okay, well, what do I need to do to solve or to answer that question? All right, guys, thanks.